Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Good evening. Happy Saturday. Yes, I'm working on a Saturday. I'm working because we got some, breaking news development in the case of Sean Diddy Combs. I'm gonna let you guys get in here. I don't know where you're checking in from, but remember, put a one in the chat if you can hear the sound of my voice. Put a one in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Okay, Galatians. Boy, Galatians is so loyal. She's the first one in the building. Good evening, Galatians. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Renee, I see you. I see you. I see you. We're gonna do a little roll call here. Debbie D. Would it be like? Okay, I see you coming up in here. I'll give you a few minutes. We got special guests coming in tonight. Yes. I'm still in New York. I ain't going nowhere, ladies and gentlemen. And we got a surprise. I can't tell you just yet. They're getting on the plane. They're heading to New York City. They're covering the trial of Sean Diddy Combs. It is a big dog. It is a big dog. I see you, Angela. I see you from Chicago checking in. I see you. Shout out your city. We're gonna do a quick roll call. I'm waiting for my special guest host, and I invited someone else off as well who's been in the courtroom. Yeah, so check it. Just come on in here and put your city in the building. I'm waiting for the guests to come in before we start talking about the show. But as you guys know, I've been covering the trial from gavel to gavel of Sean Diddy Combs. You guys have been seeing a lot of different things that's been happening inside the courtroom as well as outside the courtroom. Well, we're not going to talk too much about outside the courtroom. Shout out to Harlem. I got to come up there and get some of that Sylvia's next. Maybe tomorrow. I might go to Sylvia's tomorrow. Shout out to Queens, New York. I know all about Queens. All about Queens. Well, first, my guest is from Queens that's coming in. My guest is from Queens. I told her she late. She late. Where's she late? Hold on, guys. Let me make sure she knows she need to be up in here. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Hold on. Actually, I have two guests that's about to check in. What do you guys think about some of the testimony? We heard a lot of testimony last week. We heard testimony from two interesting witnesses that pretty much took up most of last week. We had a late start on Tuesday rather, and then we had the continuation of the cross-examination of one of the government's witnesses that got an immunity agreement. I call her the balcony girl. She got an immunity agreement, and people were wondering, why did she need an immunity agreement? Well, she had told prosecutors early on that she was a business partner of Cassie. She, pretty much it was a failed business, but her real occupation, she was a drug dealer. And ladies and gentlemen, I was in the courtroom with attorney Nicole Westmoreland. Shout out to Nicole Westmoreland. I tell you, she's every time she hit that podium. I mean, I think she has a reputation. She's like the Johnny Cochran of female attorneys in this case. She's like the Johnny Cochran of female attorneys in this case. And I tell you, when she does her cross-examination, baby, it is on fire. There's a lot of content creators that are covering this case from the comfort of their living room. Some are covering it from regurgitating other coverage, and some are actually really doing their work. There's some out there that are doing their work. And last week we had another special one of my favorite content creators, and I won't hold you. I'll shout out to Sadie Nash. I think I got that from Sadie Nash, but she came all the way from the West Coast, and she showed up this past week, and she was sitting right next to me. And I want to bring her in. I got to bring her in. I should put some drum rolls on or what. Never mind. She don't like all that. First of all, when she pulls up, you better say happy birthday to her. You better say her birthday just passed. She was in the courtroom with me on her birthday. I said, girl, this is your birthday. But see, that's the dedication. She has the dedication of a journalist. She don't care about birthdays. She knows she has to be there to get the story. She traveled from across the country to get the story. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me bring up. I'm not a lawyer, but say good evening to Miss Mel. Mel,
hello.
What's going on?
Hello. I look a mess, so don't judge me. I just landed and came home.
We're gonna leave the judge to Judge Aaron from the Diddy trial.
There you go. There you go.
Listen, you was just on a plane. We was communicating by way of plane. But I'm gonna tell you something. What an experience! Before we go into, listen, I got my co-host in the building, and you guys know her. She's one of the top criminal defense attorneys. I thought she was going to be on this particular case, but they were scratching and scrambling for another attorney, but they had one right there, professor, former prosecutor, criminal defense attorney. And I tell you, she's won murder cases, she's won all kind of cases. She also put Negroes in jail for doing that wrong. Without any further ado, let me bring on the attorney, the great attorney, Akeisha Al-Shabazz. Welcome. Good evening. Good evening.
Yo, what up, though?
Yo.
What's up? I'm not a lawyer, but you got some friends that are lawyers. Hey.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. How you doing, sis?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be on here with you.
Very cool.
So, Ike, this week it's been interesting, and
you struggle streaming
why,
already?
It's so good. Mel,
you struggle streaming. You struggle streaming.
She sat in the courtroom. Listen. Calm down. She sat in the courtroom. I'm breaking up.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
All right, now I got you.
Good. I'm good. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay. I probably won't.
See how long it lasts.
Slow down, because when I talk fast, it gets crazy. But Mel was in the courtroom for the testimony of.
You out again?
Right. So I know it's not just me.
You stuck, Dennis?
Hey, I want you guys to do not go anywhere. I have a stream box that I have in another room. I'm gonna bring it closer so we have no issues. If you guys hold on, just stand by. We may lose the signal, but we'll get it back.
Okay.
Right. I call it cap as well. Let's see if we're gonna work through this. But Mel, you were in the courtroom for the direct examination of the Jane Doe. Did you catch any of the cross examination of the balcony girl? You came in afterwards.
No. I caught some of the direct for Mia, right? That was the name they were calling her.
No, that wasn't Mia. That you caught the direct Jane Doe, but there was did you catch any Miss Westmoreland cross examination?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were there. So that brings us to this newest motion filing for mistrial.
You're out again.
Oh my goodness, what's the deal? What is happening, Dennis?
Okay, guys, stand by. Just grab the box. Just give me 2 seconds. I can see if we can talk to while I grab the box.
All right. Okay. So tell us what you've been seeing and hearing. I'm not. What's your name, sis? I'm sorry.
My real name is Melanie.
Melanie.
Yes.
Tell us what you've been hearing and seeing. Hey Pam, I see you in the chat. What's up, chat?
It was really interesting to be inside the courtroom for sure. I think seeing the jurors was really interesting, being able to see how they were reacting. There was one in particular who reacts. I feel like if I was a juror, I would be her. Like the way like the faces I feel like I would make is what she would. Yeah. So that was really,
identify. You feel like you can identify.
Absolutely. I'm like, oh, okay, she. So that was really interesting to see, and just kind of how they were observing, what was happening. Also, I saw online the drawings of Diddy and how he's doing hearts and stuff, but to like be in there, that's like in every day he does these things.
Right,
He's like every day greeting and I'm like, that's so okay. All right. Yeah, he's in good spirits, so it seems.
Right. Right.
He also
do you feel like there is any momentum on either side in the courtroom as to who is winning or who is prevailing?
I honestly think that they both have good days and bad. I don't know that I feel like somebody is winning per se, because I don't think the prosecution has proven everything that they try, right? Like when it comes to, as an example, and I typically don't even like to give too many opinions because I hate comments. However, when it comes to the arson as an example, right? I don't know if they proved beyond a reasonable doubt. I think the inference is there. I think that you could imagine it happened.
Right.
But when you have the detective saying that it was female fingerprints or, you know, whatever, or nobody was actually charged, or it's still technically an open case. So it's like, is there anything conclusive about this that actually shows it was him? Again, the inference is there. And I think.
Yeah, along those lines, right? Because when the prosecution is offering this type of evidence, they're asking the jury to trust.
Yeah.
That this evidence means what we say it means. Do you think that relationship they're trying to establish with the jury has been undermined as a result of this testimony from was it Banya?
Yes.
The balcony testimony. Do you think that and let's speak to that for us?
Absolutely. I think it was, you could feel the moments in the room when that you could, and the juror I'm talking about reacted. She was reacting. And so I think that what sucks.
Here.
Oh, you back?
We was having a good old time without you.
We are back. I'm waiting for Mel and Ike to come back. Can you guys hear me?
We ain't leave.
Okay, yeah. Oh, you didn't leave. Okay. Well, I had to bring the internet closer, so we're back. Okay, so Ike, you were asking her what did she see in the court for her first day there?
Yeah, no, I was asking her, you know, basically some of the evidence, like the arson evidence, right? There is no direct evidence. When I say direct evidence, I mean that there is an actual eyewitness who can say, I saw him do that, right? And so the prosecution is relying circumstantially on this evidence and asking the jury to draw a conclusion that it was Diddy based on a set of circumstances that they have presented. That's what circumstantial evidence is, right? With me? Okay. So my next question to Melanie was, you have to have a relationship with jurors to get them to accept the evidence that you have presented circumstantially. And if they don't trust you, then they may not draw the inferences that you're asking them to draw based on those circumstances. And the fact that now we have what purports to be suborned testimony from the government, I think that definitely is going to affect this jury's trust of this prosecution. That's kind of the conversation we was getting to. And and Melanie was explaining how in court you could feel it was palpable, right? The different, and so and that's where we left off. That's where you came back in. You want to finish that? What you want to go, Dennis? Because I want to hear Melanie tell us about how palpable it was in the courtroom and how the jurors are reacting.
The latest motion filing. I'm sorry.
Oh, are you delayed now?
Yeah, now you're delayed. Oh my God.
You go out and come back in? I don't know what the solution is.
I don't know.
Can you hear me?
Didn't he just do that? Oh,
we have the latest motion filing.
Okay, let's talk about
I don't know why it seems like it's cutting off. But Ike, if you can, you guys can, if I lose you, just continue on. But you have the motion and I'll bring it up. Let me just bring the motion up.
Yeah, bring it up because I don't have it.
We have it here.
And I'm on the desk.
I don't think you had an opportunity. I have it. I have it. I don't think Mel had a chance to look at it because she was on the plane.
I read it.
Let me bring it up here.
There you go, sis. Don't be playing with her. She ready.
I
read it on the plane.
Oh, she read it. Okay. She read it. Okay.
Love it.
Okay, okay.
I don't
Here
know
we
why I
go.
consume my life with this stuff.
Go. All right, so let me. Can I just say?
Okay,
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, no. Yeah,
I can.
You good? Okay, Dennis. I don't know what's happening.
Andrew Shapiro filed this probably about the last 3 hours, and it's also been published on TMZ. And essentially, Ike, from your perspective, do you think this is a good motion for the defense?
So I think it's a necessary motion. I think it's a good motion. I wish that it had been worded a little more strongly. I know that oftentimes lawyers, they don't want to offend the prosecution, so they don't go hard on these motions. But they should have slayed them in this motion. They should have asked for sanctions. They should have asked for a referral to the committee, to the ethics committee. They should have done all of that. When you suborn perjury, and that is what you are saying, if you really are saying they suborn perjury, go all in. Go all in. You talking about they collaborated their testimony, they homogenized their testimony. They picked the wrong word. It's not collaboration. It's homogenized. This is, you sit down and you make sure that these things meld together. They work together. That's what they did. That's what they did. That's what allegedly, right? What Bonner and Cassie did. They sat down and they said, okay, this is how this is going to roll. I'm going to say this and you going to say that. And they're going to put that together. And that's going to sound hella true. But the government knew the whole time because, just so people remember how this works, everybody in the courtroom, both sides, they have the same evidence, right? So the the text messages that they had between Cassie, right? And I think it was KK saying, I just heard some shit. Bitch, you just heard some shit, then you didn't see it. Right? So which one is going to be? So the government had that. You had that. And despite that fact, you still put this woman on the stand, not KK. I'm talking not Bonner. I'm talking about Cassie. You put Cassie on the stand and you led her, not let her. You led her. LED. You led her to testify about something that was demonstrably fucking false. The case is over for me. It's over for me because I can't trust anything or anyone that you put on the stand now, because you are not preparing witnesses to tell their truth. You are coaching witnesses to tell your truth. You are coaching witnesses to tell any story that you need to make sure that you can get a conviction. That's it. That's all you want. And as a prosecutor, there is a lot. I'm going to tell you, there is a lot of pressure, not just from the public, but from the people in your office who are watching this trial, right? There's a lot of prosecutors' offices. They have different little things that you do when you're in a trial, right? We had a bell. Right, when you come in from the office, you got a guilty. You come in, you ring the bell. Everybody comes out. It's like, it's a fucking production, right? They want to ring the fucking bell. They want to ring the bell. They want to ring the bell, and it looks like, and I say this is my opinion because they like to sue people. It looks like they are willing to do anything to secure conviction in this case.
How do we know that's true? Just by way of this piece of evidence, and as I listened to the testimony, I said these guys have unlimited resources. They had the ability to check the photo, the metadata. Why did Miss Nicole Westmoreland under cross-examination have to bring this out? They knew this was going to be a problem for them.
No, this is what they gamble on. They gamble on defense attorneys who don't read discovery. They gamble on defense attorneys who don't know how to do effective cross-examination. They gamble on that shit, and they hope you don't find the discovery that they buried in between thousands and thousands of pages and boxes of shit that they sent you. Right? So that's what they gamble on. They hope that you are not as adept at your job as they are at theirs. Right? And if you don't catch it, what if she didn't catch it? Then the jury is none the wiser that these witnesses got on this stand and they lied with the imprimatur, with the stamp of approval of the government.
How can you give a jury a curative instruction when this is so damning to?
But
This goes into the character of Combs. They portray this guy as I say the Tobias of Black Lightning. This guy just doing all kind of like just.
Yeah.
Well, listen. This guy, first and foremost, he's done a lot of.
I don't know. To your point, right? So under the Federal Rules of Evidence, under Federal Rule 105. The government, any party, the defense could ask for what's called a limiting instruction, right? Which is where they're asking the court to tell the jury something about this particular evidence, how they should view it, how they should consider it. What is the court going to say? Ladies and gentlemen, you heard testimony from a particular witness, Ms. Banya, and then you later heard testimony during cross-examination that the testimony that she gave was not true. You should consider, it's up to you to consider. I mean, because he can't tell them what to do with it. It's up to you to consider how much of her testimony that you will believe and how much of it you won't believe. That's the typical false in one, false in all jury instruction, right? That the court will give at the end of this trial. And that's a real thing, right? Because you can parse out some truth in some people's story. And if you believe the truths of the parts of the story, you can believe those parts. And the parts that you don't believe to be true, you can disregard those parts. That's what the judge is going to tell them. So I don't think that there is a curative instruction that he could fashion that would be fair, honestly.
Mel, what did you think about how Nicole did her cross-examination? You were able to look at her style. You can watch the witness. You were able to look at the jurors. What did you think?
I thought it was brilliant. I think in general, her execution, her style is, I'm a fan of that style anyway. I was a fan of her in YSL. And so I think it was brilliantly executed. I think the build up from the previous day, I think it was intentional that she let it build. And then the second day brought that part out. I think that was clear. And I mean, frankly, homegirl fell for it, right? She right before Nicole, I mean, truly, right? Like right before Nicole went into it, she said, and just to be clear, she restated the story to get her to agree. And actually read the transcript. What happened is they went to a sidebar, and the sidebar, they were trying to have Nicole, they being prosecution was trying to have Nicole re-ask the question. And Nicole was like, y'all trying to mess me up. You're trying to get her now backtrack on her saying it happened on the 26th. She's already said it. She's already said it happened on the 26th. I'm not going to restate. And the judge was, she asked the question, foundation has been laid. She can proceed. And so she gets back up there and does it. I think the other interesting thing is that for me, this is my opinion. I'm not a lawyer. We all know that. But for me, what was really interesting about her setup is that the first set of questions that Nicole asked, or at least early in that cross-examination of Bana, she had her go through all of the drugs that woman took, all of them. And immediately, right, early on, what you gather is that she's an addict, right? And so you're like, okay, foundation is laid. And so now I'm personally viewing her as an addict. And so when you hear a story about, and the way Nicole asked questions, she sets it up like, so you were at Cassie's house one day, he shows up with a knife, throws it, and walks away. And so with the foundation of her being an addict, I'm like, well, what was she hallucinating? Did that really happen?
Right. It doesn't make sense.
Yes. And then you hear this next story of, it could have been at a party, but then it was at a photo shoot, and he said he was the devil. And I'm like, well, that also sounds like something she might have dreamed of. And then you get to the end, and Nicole is like, so it happened on the 26th, right? But Diddy was in New York, and now you're like, oh, damn. You know, like,
right.
It was, for me, it was a build of like, oh, and so when you got to that point, she had set it up so perfectly that it became something that you could, I was watching and felt like I don't, and up until that point, I'll be honest, I could, because of the drugs and the addiction, I would give the idea that her memory is fried and she don't remember when stuff happened. So I would have initially given that. But then the way she set it up is like, I'm not even going to give her that. The prosecutor should have gotten ahead of it, should have also showed that she's an addict, but showed that therefore her brain is fried. She don't remember when it happened. Why would you lie? It just feels like I've been misled and I've been lied to by the prosecutors.
So their response, right? They have to respond to this motion. Their response is going to be that she didn't lie, that she was mistaken. I bet my house that's what they're going to say. That's what they're going to say. She didn't lie. They didn't suborn perjury, that she's just mistaken on the dates.
Wow.
That's it.
Well, and that's what they said in redirect, right? She got up there in redirect and she said, do you remember all the details? Do you remember when this happened? Are you uncertain of what had happened, but certain? Do you have any doubt that it actually happened? And she's like, no doubt. And I'm like, well, girl, you should have started there. Why would you? Now you're just responding to what has been brought out. That's basically lie. So it was,
trying to clean it up. They got to clean it up.
I think
how it came across. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think, and you saw how the cross-examination ended. It was pretty powerful, and we saw the reaction of the jurors. I think that Nicole was very effective in bringing doubt to this particular witness. And while a curative instruction, in my opinion, is not going to really do much, she's a problem for the prosecution. I don't care how they try to recover. She's a problem. She's a big problem. Yeah. But and I think that's what everyone's saying. The other part is now you have this next witness who, and we saw how she was, Melody. We saw how she was crying all through the morning. It was tears all over the place.
Jane Doe, right?
Yeah.
Jane Doe.
Yeah.
Jane Doe.
I don't understand how they can maintain her anonymity on cross-examination. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say this because part of her testimony, no, come on, I know better. I know, part of her testimony surrounds this idea that she was involved in all of this because he had threatened to take away this $10,000 payment that he's making for paying her rent or whatever, right? But your child's father is also a millionaire. Mm-hmm. And you're getting, we're not naming names, but if I'm on cross, bitch, I want to know how much child support you was getting. How much child support was you getting? Because you're making it seem like that 10,000, that 10 stacks was the only money you saw and you couldn't move because without it, you couldn't move. Oh, he would threaten to stop paying my rent. Okay, you know what that says to me? That you are replaceable, right?
Right.
That's a standard relationship with a boyfriend and girlfriend. You're not giving me what I need. I'm gonna go get it from somewhere else.
Right. That's important. Very important point.
Racketeering.
Here's the thing that was interesting for me. I will say she comes across as credible for me. She also brought up child support, yes. So I wouldn't be surprised if that question is asked on that motion, because she said at one point, the way I was living with the financially is from the money he would give me as well as my child support. Literally, that was it.
I gotta know how much the child support was.
So yes.
And she's still living in that person in his house right now. He's paying that's house, but he's paying the rent. Still paying.
Yes. However, the thing I found most interesting about her testimony was at the very end of the day when the defense, Agnifilo, I can never say that man's name, Agnifilo.
Agnifilo.
Got put the emphasis. The wrong emphasis.
At the end of the day, he gets up, right? Jurors are gone. And what he says is what they've realized throughout the direct examination of this witness is that when it comes to trafficking this witness, what prosecutors are alleging is that it was done through fraud. They were not focusing on violence, threat of violence, and coercion. They're focusing on fraud. And the reason I think that stands out is because there were multiple text messages, multiple letters, and a lot of her testimony. What happened is he would invite her to places And she would say, I don't want any setups. He would say, good, no setups. And then when she gets there, all of a sudden it's a man, an entertainer.
Yeah.
Or
door number one, door number two, or door number three.
Right, but how many times, like you fooled me one time with that? I showed up and then we got to have a freak off. And so the next time, and I'm like, nah, I don't want to do it. I show up again and you still got some people. I'm out.
I thought it was interesting because what they were saying, right? The reason they're reading her notes is because she is saying, you lied to me. Which means what the prosecutors were saying was that those lies are then material, and they're proving her state of mind, which is that she felt lied to. She felt I want to go to Turks. I want to celebrate my birthday in Turks. Okay, right. Turks. We're going to Turks. Finally, after all of this time, I'm taking you to Turks. And what happens? An entertainer shows up. Yeah. We agreed there wouldn't be one. And then hey, come to New York. I want to see you for a couple days. Okay, but I don't want any entertainers. No, just me and you time, because she expresses, I really want me and you time. Right. Me and you time date night. She comes to New York. She looks up, and the red light is on in the hotel in Trump hotel room. And so
it's a problem. Ike, it looks like
it's not.
It's not a problem.
Here's the thing.
Okay.
It's not criminal. It's not a crime for you to tell someone, listen, this is what we're gonna do. And when you get there, you're like, you know what? I changed my mind. I do want to freak off. That person is well within their right to say, you know what? I don't. I told you I didn't when I came, and I'm not going to participate in that. There was nothing that had her beholden to the freak offs except her own obligations in her own mind, that I don't want to piss him off. I don't want him to be unhappy. I want to please him. I'm trying to establish myself so I could be the number one chick. So I'm trying to do these things so I don't piss him off, right? Because I want to be agreeable. That whole idea about, being with these type of men, right? You have to be agreeable, right? Well, we've been hearing that for some time, right? And so she's going along with that. That's on you. That's on you, sis. I'm sorry. That's on you. Nobody forced you. At any time, you could have said, you know what? I'm going to be short on this rent then. I'm going to have to call my baby's father. I'm going to have to use some of this child support bread to pay for this rent. Or I'm going to have to move out of this $10,000 a month residence. How about that? How about you move out? You can't afford it.
Do you think it's problematic? And this is why I started off at the beginning, that I think both sides have had good days and bad days. Because somebody was just saying that I'm a fan, I guess, of Nicole Westmoreland, which I think she is good, but I think she destroyed on cross. And then when it comes to this witness, I think so. Right.
I think she's credible. I believe her in her testimony of what she said happened. Don't think it rises to the level of sex trafficking.
Let me ask you this.
Let me just say this last thing.
Go ahead.
Sex trafficking, when we talk about RICO and racketeering, these are commercial acts, right? And I've said this before. When someone is a sex trafficker, they have unwilling women, and then people pay them to have sex with these women. They are in it to make money. That's where the commercial aspect is, right? So I've got some women. I'm going to put them on Backpage. All right, I'm going to get some guys to call. They're going to call. And they're going to come in and they're going to pay me to have sex with them. That's what sex trafficking is. This was not that. It is not sex trafficking when you pay them. Right? These people that are coming to have sex, they're not paying to have sex with her. He's paying them. Right? So I don't know how they are going to sell this. This is a fetish of his. Right? This is just, he has a freaky side where he is into male body fluids and things, right? And so he likes to play dinner yet. Go ahead. I'm just saying this is all that is. That's all it is. And as much as we may be repulsed by it, it's not criminal. It's not criminal. It's fucked up. It's 100% fucked up. Right, but it's not criminal. I don't see it. I don't see it as a crime.
Do you think the jurors just hearing this and you, the jurors, do you think that they would go in and convict them based on some type of nullification? They come in and say this guy's just a bad.
I think this case is going to come down to the summation. I think it's going to come down to whether or not this defense attorney can do a number of things. First, they need to make sure every juror understands that this is their case to decide.
Okay.
Oftentimes, jurors go in the back and they don't recognize that they have an equal voice, right? They often, if they're younger, they will be quiet to the older jurors. Often, if they're Black, they will not speak up if white jurors are. That this is a real dynamic that happens in the jury room, right? So they need to make sure that each juror understands their role. You must decide this case for yourself. That doesn't mean you don't listen to your other jurors and you deliberate with your other jurors and you exchange ideas and thoughts, but do not abandon your conscientiously held belief about this case. Don't abandon it, even if you're in the minority and the hour is late. Right? So it's Friday at 4 fucking o'clock. You gonna be a holdout? I need you gotta promise me that. That's something I do on jury selection. I need to know, I need to make sure that you're not gonna be like, all right, fuck it. Then everybody else said it's gonna be what it is, and you just throw your caution to the wind, throw your vote to the wind because you are in the minority and the hour is late. Right? That's one. Two, they need to make sure this the jury understands that this man is presumed innocent unless and until they are convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, here's the thing. Jurors need to understand that if you're confused, you're not convinced. It's not your job to go unconfuse yourself. It's not your job to make this case make sense for you. If the prosecution does not do that, and you are not convinced and you are confused, you must acquit him. You must vote not guilty. The law requires it. It's not even a fucking question, right? And they need to make sure the jury understands that. If you're confused, you're not convinced, you must vote not guilty. That's it. In this case, it's confusing because there is no way that they're going to sell this racketeering, going to sell this RICO, going to sell that there's a conspiracy with this individual who is the only person charged. A conspiracy, by definition, is an agreement between you and some other motherfuckers. So where the other motherfuckers? Where they at? Pull up. And I don't want to hear this whole, well, Cassie is an unindicted co-conspirator. No, the fuck, she's not. She clearly is identified as a victim.
Right.
As are the other 3 or 4 victims. So where are the co-conspirators? And no, it's not the people that they gave immunity to, right? Just because you have engaged in some criminal activity does not mean that you and I agreed. Does not mean that you and I had the same mental state, because that's what's required for a conspiracy, right? We both have to agree that we are going to together commit this crime, right? It can't be that you committing the crime because you work for me. That's not a conspiracy. You're not a conspirator. You are a low-level employee who is doing my bidding.
And that would fall under KK and D-Rock as well.
Yeah, well, where the fuck they at? So where they at? Where they at? They coming to testify? I imagine that they will be calling KK. Right. But I imagine that testimony is not going to go the way that they expect.
And they're definitely going to risk bringing her in. And D-Rock, his name came up, during plenty of times.
And listen, again, if on summations, if those people are not called, one, I'm asking for a missing witness charge, right? So a missing witness charge is when you ask the court, can you give an instruction to the jury and tell them that the prosecution promised that you would hear from this witness, and because you did not hear from this witness, you can now draw a negative inference that had this witness come, the testimony would have been favorable for the defense, and that's why they didn't bring the witness. So I'm asking for that instruction. I want that instruction so that when summation comes, I'm going to say, you heard all this testimony about a KK. They didn't bring KK. They didn't bring
They
you
showed a picture about 3 times.
Right. So if they didn't, so that's that remains to be seen. That's the argument to be made if they don't bring these people.
Right.
Right. If so, we see the cross is getting better because I remember I spoke on Hip Hop Uncensored, and I broke down the 3 C's of impeachment, right, and how it needs to be a lead up. I did this 2 weeks ago, that they have to commit, right? 3 C's meaning that you don't just go in to confront a witness. There has to be a lead up. You have to get them to commit and credit their prior testimony before you confront them with their inconsistent statement. And finally, we see them doing that. Finally, we see Brian still asking close-ended questions. That's something he didn't do in the YSL trial, was something that drove me crazy. Now I see him, he's like, isn't it true that? I'm like, oh, let me find out you done found some closed question, Brian. Deal. Let's go. So yeah, I'm happy to see that. Listen, because cross is the key. Cross is the key. It is. We don't call it the crucible for nothing.
Yeah, we've seen the direct and we say, oh man, this is done. And then the cross comes in.
Right. You're like, what was that? What was that?
What happened to this witness? And did we talk about why the balcony, I just call it balcony girl, got immunity? We talked about why she got immunity. She was a drug dealer. No, she was
because she was
a drug dealer.
Yes.
But it's interesting that she's a drug dealer, but she really got immunity, and then this story comes out that maybe she probably wasn't even there. That probably didn't happen. So they got all this. So we're
clear, immunity does not shield her from a prosecution for perjury.
Oh, does it? Okay. Oh, okay.
Does not.
Okay.
Does not. So they could still charge her. They will not. They won't. They won't. But they could charge her with perjury, even though she has an immunity that she was granted immunity. I heard someone saying that, well, they gave her immunity, so now they can't get her for perjury. Yeah, they still can. Immunity does not cover you coming on a stand and just willfully lying. That's not how that works.
So here's and we talked about this, but she's lying, and then it looks like Cassie may be lying. And then you look at other witnesses that testified, like they're coordinating stories, even down to Nash. When Nash testified, we know Nash is the bestie of Cassie. He's talked to her before, helped pick out wardrobes for a testimony. This is not. Wait a minute, you guys are too close for comfort for me. Yeah. And then people say he did good test. He gave a good test. Some say.
I heard his cross was not very good. Yo, Xavier. I don't know what.
Listen,
stop talking about Xavier. Okay, Xavier Donaldson. And stop messing his name up. Folks is calling him all kinds of things. I heard somebody call Nicole Westmont. Matter of fact, it was Ashley Banfield was like Rachel Westmoreland. I was like, fuck is Rachel?
Put some respect on it. We know that's Nicole Westmoreland.
Like they had me googling, like, is that her middle name?
No. They're playing with a name.
Why y'all gotta misname the black lawyers? There's only 2 of them in there.
There's only 2 of them.
There's only 2 of them in there, and you're gonna misname them. Come on, man.
Well, it's probably good. It's probably good. Your boy got misnamed. Because no one so I'm okay with that. No, he did okay. Listen, he did okay. It's just people. He doesn't have that. Let's just say, because you're going to see me on Monday. All I would say is that when he started his cross-examination of Nash, what threw me off is when he, the first thing he did is to rub his face like, oh gosh, I got to cross-examine this guy, and just goes in. I said, okay, this is not. Oh, this is not looking right.
Sounds so performative.
Yeah. But then Nash was very performative. Nash was very.
I heard.
Nash was. They put his headshot up. He said, "Don't that look good? Look, dude, this is a serious case. We know it. Looking at your headshot."
That's why you go with that. You want that in a case like this. You know why? Because there is a saying that laughing juries do not acquit. So let's make them laugh.
Okay. And then he's a Craigslist stylist. They found him on Craigslist. Like, where they do that at? Like
he finds everyone on Craigslist. That's Diddy's site of choice.
So, do you think Diddy will take the stand?
You can get a stylist. You can can get a lot of things.
Do you think Diddy would take the stand? Do you think he should take the stand?
Okay,
based
so
on everything you've heard thus far.
It's too early to tell. So here's what I think. At the end of the people's case, that's when this will be determined, because it will depend on their perception of how well the prosecution has presented their case. If they have not presented their case well, then I think he should sit his ass in that chair and shut the fuck up. Right? But if they have presented their case, they somehow get KK in there, they get D-Rock, they start tying things together, they can demonstrate other co-conspirators. And if they can do that, then he has nothing to lose than to testify. Because at that point, the jury's going to want to hear.
We got one more person up in here. Hold on. Ladies and gentlemen. Boy, I tell you, it's a party. It's a party. It's a party. Ladies and gentlemen, Pammy Pam in the building.
You're so extra. Hey, everybody. Hey, Mel. Hey, Ike.
What's up, Pam?
What's going on? I'm glad somebody else out here, because, girl, I done pulled up the jury instructions trying to tell folk what you got to prove. I'm like,
right.
It's been rough out here.
Right. Because
there's been other lawyers that I'm like, well, what area do you practice?
Don't, girl.
It's been rough out here.
It's bad. It is bad. A lot of the commentary is wrong, right? It's inaccurate, unfortunately. We try to correct the record as much as we can. And hopefully, jurors are respecting the court's instructions and admonitions, and they're not, looking at social media and these videos and these pseudo journalists who are misreporting facts, details, the law.
Now, we talk about the jurors. The jurors are walking out into the public every day. They cross the cameras all the time. Do you think this jury should have been sequestered? And that's for any one of the panelists.
No. First of all, sequestering a jury is an extreme measure. And when I say extreme measure, it's costly, not just financially, but time-wise. You're taking these people away from their families regularly, and it's not necessary. I don't think it's necessary. I don't. You're just gonna have a bunch of disgruntled jurors. Nobody wants unhappy jurors, right? But because unhappy jurors convict, like we don't want them.
Over with.
Yeah, we're gonna keep them happy. So I don't think they should have been sequestered.
Last week, and Pam, you read the transcript. Last week, judge gave a admonishment to Sean Combs to him.
You still struggle
reacting.
Yeah, right.
Okay, can you hear me now? Are we good?
Work with AT&T.
So the judge gave an admonishment to Mr. Combs because of the way he's looking at jurors. Do you think that? Do you think he will risk? Or do you think he's able to watch this trial without reacting to some of the testimony? Because there was a lot of stuff said about him, and he's finally reacted. This is the most animated I've seen him in the trial when the testimony of this young lady that Miss Westmoreland cross-examined.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to back up on that. Originally, when I looked at the transcript, I was comparing it to what was being reported, the transcript shows that before trial or before the jury came in, there was just a reminder to watch your facial expressions, all your gestures, and all of that. There was a sidebar, and in that sidebar, the government complained about Diddy nodding his head vigorously and making all these faces and all of that. And then eventually, and the judge actually said, well, I'm writing down, I'm not really paying attention to that. And then next thing you know, it's this big thing of, I want you all to tell the defendant, tell your client they need to stop doing. And that was really based off the government from what I was reading from the transcript. Now, Mel, I don't know if you ready, but that's what I got from it. I was like, the way it was being reported made it seem like he was just in there clowning, and then they just, but it sounded, what happened was, what I saw in the transcript is Nicole Westmoreland was tearing them up. Do you hear me? She did the build up. She made her commit to her answers. Then she kept saying, that's because it never happened, right? No, it happened. All right, well, let's go on to the next set of questions I'm about to catch you up in. That's because it never happened, right? No, I stick by that it happened. And what the government started doing is doing anything to break up her testimony and her rhythm. You know how they do. So it was objection. One of the objections was in the sidebar that Nicole Westmoreland was leading. Her leading was testifying.
611, Federal Rule of Evidence 611. She's supposed to lead. That's what the rule says, that when you're on examination, you can fucking lead. But that's my problem, because I know that they didn't go into that sidebar and say 611, because that's all the fuck you have to say. Like,
well, the judge just responded and was like, I don't see her doing anything improper outside of what she's supposed to do leading. But the point was they were just trying to break it up.
Right. But they mentioned that in the letter. We didn't even go over the letter, but they mentioned that in the letter. Their motion for a mistrial is that the government engaged in these objections that were not needed, right, for the purpose of interrupting the strategy and the flow of the cross-examination.
And that one instance, everyone, like when I say everyone, all of major media ran with that. Diddy's acting up in the court. He's doing this. He's evil. He's intimidating the jurors. He's looking at them, giving them the evil eye. He's having these weird thoughts about jurors. I don't know what they was doing, but they were doing too much.
The conversation was just off. Like, even at the sidebar, the conversation was he's testifying basically from the seat by agreeing with what his attorney is saying, is what the argument was at sidebar. But if you believe somebody's lying on you, the response is kind of like, you're gonna have some reactions if you're just a human being. So I'm sure some of the jurors, I don't have to be there to know that some of the jurors are like, well, didn't they just say?
Right.
Sometimes it's just hard, but they felt like what the government said at the sidebar was Diddy was making these faces, and they saw jurors writing stuff down when he made the faces. So it was basically they were agreeing that what Westmoreland was saying was what it was by the way Diddy was responding.
Nonsense.
And they saw them write it down. I was like, huh?
Well,
Nonsense. Well, so the other side, the other part of that 611 rule is that the court can interrupt an examination if the witness is being embarrassed or humiliated or right. So the court can do that. And that's what they're relying on. But that's not what's happening. They're doing their job. That's what cross-examination looks like. They're not used to seeing it. You know why? Because they have a 99% conviction rate. You know where that conviction rate comes from? Please. It doesn't come from having trial.
Understand that. They don't not the smallest percentage, because it's only a small percent that goes to trial. And what I like about this, just as an attorney, is to see a millionaire that can afford to really go up against what the feds got.
Exactly.
Like a lot of times we don't get to see it where they going toe for toe, pound for pound, dollar for dollar, and we don't.
And they're not used to that. Like I've had cases in the Southern. They're not used to that. When you push it back, they're like, "What the fuck is going on? What's happening? Right. Why would you be like defending?"
I don't
like
think
that's what I came to do. Like that's kind of my job, right? But I had a trial in front of Judge Stein in the Southern District, and I tore the government's witnesses up so bad. The judge called me up and was like, "I like how you did that cross." They're not used to seeing it. They are not used to seeing it. I had a case in the Eastern District. It was a Hobbs Act robbery where they had to prove that my client had stolen diamonds. They brought a gemologist on. I tore his fucking ass up. They weren't used to anyone even crossing the expert witness. You usually just get on. They say it's a diamond, and of course, I cross-examined to come to find out he wasn't an expert. He was a hobbyist.
Oh,
His dad had taken him to like the quartz mines when he was a kid, and so you ain't even a whole gemologist. Get out of here, hung jury. But this is my point is they are not used to effective cross-examination. This is why they're reacting this way.
Let me say something else. The judge, he's running a very tight courtroom, and Mel will tell you what happened with the marshals and how strict are the marshals in the court in this case, and how people are really on their P's and Q's, because there was a motion for the media, and argued about redacted exhibits and so forth. This particular,
you're like every other word is we're missing it.
Okay, well, I'll send a text.
Send a kite.
I showed them I was very serious about keeping it quiet, right, Mel? I showed them in the court I was very serious about keeping it quiet. What did I do, Mel?
Dennis was in there playing games. This man pulled out some tape and put it over his mouth because because he's silly. And the court officer started the day like, I'm not telling nobody today. There's no warnings. This is the warning. If I see you talking, I'm taking you out. So then Dennis pulls out tape and puts it over his mouth like, won't be me.
You're not going to catch me out there.
You did that, Dennis, in front of the jurors?
No, listen, the marshals laughed, by the way. The marshals did laugh.
They did. But it was.
When I heard they put people out, I was really concerned that one of them.
Oh my God, not you.
Dennis get kicked out of the court.
Don't start that rumor. Do not start that rumor. It's too much of that going on.
I have my concerns.
Listen, I have my concerns. I took 2 days off, and everyone said Dennis got banned. Wait a minute, I took 2 days off. But I want to thank the panel for coming in.
Wait, we didn't even talk about the motion, though.
Right? Oh,
hold on.
Let her up for like a second, and you
my
didn't.
child, I told you I just got in, and she is.
Look at
the baby.
This is great. Thanks for having me on. I'm gonna go be a mom. Appreciate it. So good to meet you.
Good to meet you as well.
Thank you, Mel. I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'll see you back in the court, especially for the cross-examination. I can talk about the motion. Let's go.
I thought you was gonna put it up and read it. It's only
I had it up there.
All right, let's go through it. I mean, we talked about what the things that they're bringing up.
It should be there. Hold on. There we go. Let's see if we can put it right there. Hello.
Let's do it.
Hey, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay,
Dear Judge Submarinian, the defense respectfully submits this letter in support of its renewed motion for a mistrial based on prosecutorial misconduct. When the introduction of perjured testimony results in a criminal conviction and the prosecution knew or should have known of the perjury, the conviction must be set aside. So this is an anticipatory motion to dismiss. If there is any reasonable likelihood that the false testimony could have affected the judgment of the jury. U.S. v. Cite, Moreover, the prosecutor's knowing use of perjured testimony can violate the due process clause, even if it only undermines a witness's credibility. As the Supreme Court has explained, a lie is a lie, no matter what its subject, and if it is in any way relevant in the case, the district attorney has the responsibility and duty to correct what he knows to be false and to elicit the truth. Ooh, I like it. As explained below, in the trial, the government has presented testimony that it knew or should have known was materially false related to its allegations that Mr. Combs dangled Brianna Bongolan from the balcony of Cassie Ventura's apartment in September of 2016. Accordingly, they should have put the date, right? Put the date. Wasn't a specific date that they're contesting. Accordingly,
September 26, 2016.
Right. Why would you put just September? I don't like that. Remember, I told Dennis earlier, just in full disclosure, right? I didn't like the way that this letter was written. But that's, the law professor and me also, right? That's the other side of that. I taught legal writing for 5 years. And I was like, oh, it's not specific enough. All right. The government contends that the alleged balcony incident is relevant. Not only do they did open up on that shit. It shows Mr. Combs' violence directed not only to Miss Ventura, but to other people around Miss Ventura. She is aware of this violence, and because of her awareness, it goes to coercion. The incident, as alleged, is disturbing and powerful evidence, and the government has used it to depict Mr. Combs in an extremely negative light as an angry and dangerous man who terrified Miss Ventura and her friends.
And just to stop 1 second, Ike. So at the sidebar, there was a conversation where the judge asked, what does the balcony testimony got to do with this indictment? And they did say it was the violence related to the coercion.
So they want to use that as coercion, the balcony.
Well, they opened on it, right? Didn't they say they talked about it in their opening statement as well? Did they not?
To basically say that the violence was around and it was just in the orbit, because they mentioned KK and call her, I think, a co-conspirator and everything on this sidebar.
That's right.
So they were saying that it basically shows the environment that Cassie knew that not just she was being violently attacked, but this would happen to your friend. So this created a coercive environment. That's what they argued. So that's why they made this very important.
Very important.
As it goes to like the separate coercion for trafficking and also under the actual racketeering.
Right. Wow. Okay. Dennis, you skipped page 2.
No, 2's there. I didn't skip it.
I only see page 3.
That's page 3 on the screen instead of page.
Okay, hold on. I must have just jumped. Hold on, let me take it back. I'll take it back.
Take it back now, y'all.
I'll take it back.
One hop this time.
Oh yeah, it definitely went to 3. Hold on, here we go. There you go.
2.
That's
the prosecutors elicited evidence about this allegation from both Miss Ventura and Miss Boglin that is demonstrably false in key respects. They then doubled down, using this false testimony to obtain a ruling admitting inadmissible hearsay evidence about it as well, all to present a false narrative to the jury. The government started by eliciting testimony from Miss Ventura about the allegation that cannot be true. See, that's not right. It can be true if she's mistaken, right? That's why. Okay. Miss Ventura says she actually saw Mr. Combs holding Miss Boglin over the balcony railing. Then there's your citing transcript. Yet the prosecutors knew she had not actually seen what she described because they had in their possession a text conversation demonstrating that Miss Ventura was told about the alleged incident by another unidentified person. Cites to the thing. They cite to some government exhibit where there's a text message where Cassie says, "Hey, I just found out some crazy shit. I'm just finding out right now." Nonetheless, they allowed Miss Ventura to continue to insist on cross. She had witnessed the incident.
That's a problem.
Question, and you testified that you saw him throw her onto the patio furniture, right? Answer, yup. He brought her back over the balcony and he threw her down. She persisted in this story even after she was confronted by the text messages. Question, isn't it true that you learned about this incident on the balcony after the fact? Answer, I saw what I saw, so I don't know. Question, has the government, in your preparation for your testimony in this case, gone over this message with you? Answer, not this one, no. I mean, in their own letter, they're saying that the government did not address this with her, right? So they're undermining their own argument. Yeah, they're undermining themselves by saying that and including the fact that the government didn't go over that particular part of testimony.
The text message is a problem. It's a major problem.
They're a huge problem.
You get on the stand and say you saw it, but your text message says
right. Did you definitely
I think Ron Golan testified that too, that nobody saw it. Like she was the only one out there. I think that was part of her testimony, if I recall correctly, as well. She said nobody saw the incident. Yeah, and then in Cassie's lawsuit, the civil lawsuit that started this whole domino effect, she said she talked about the balcony incident and said that their other friend Tiffany was there too. Byron Golan testified that she told Cassie that wasn't true. Tiffany wasn't there when that happened. So she tests like all these different stories on the balcony incident. Everybody trying to figure out like what really happened.
Right.
And then the text message comes in to say, I heard from Cassie, I heard about it. And you telling AK, I heard about it. And it was sidebar about that because it was a text that was hearsay within hearsay.
Right.
It was Cassie telling. I didn't know why the judge let it in. I mean,
so
Cassie lied.
under the federal rules of evidence, double hearsay is admissible if you can satisfy each level.
Each layer, right?
Yeah, each level of hearsay. So it's probably presence and depression. It probably is,
it says state of mind.
Yeah, present state of mind. So and all of those exceptions to the hearsay rule would allow that testimony in if it's relevant. If it's relevant under 401.
You got to explain to the people that if she gets on the stand and testified that she witnessed it, but in her text messages, she's learning it from someone else, that conflicts.
That you can't reconcile that.
You can't.
So the defense used it to impeach Cassie when she was on the stand. They used it for, it was never entered into evidence. They used it to impeach it. Then the government, after Westmoreland did her thing, the government tried to enter it to corroborate that it happened because 3 days after the incident, Cassie texted KK and said, I heard this crazy stuff that while I was asleep, while we was all in the bedroom sleep, that Sean came in and he had her over the balcony and all of that. So they were trying to use that because it was like 3 days after the incident to corroborate. They were trying to use it for a consistent statement of Cassie.
But they used heavy drugs. Like, come on now.
As impeachment evidence.
Right. Like, what the hell?
So, you know what I find is a problem? Because we heard testimony by Mia, who said she had a nightmare. She had a nightmare. She was in the elevator with R. Kelly, and Sean Combs came and rescued her. Was she on drugs too? Was it a nightmare, or was she on a drug bin?
Right. All of these were drug addicts. I mean, I think that has been established over and over again. Everybody, I mean, and I learned new drugs.
I did too. I learned about 3 or 4 new drugs in this trial.
Yeah, a lot of drugs, and everybody was high. Right?
Uppers, downers, lefters, righters. It was just like, oh my goodness.
Nobody was here on Earth during that period.
I don't know whose memory they're gonna rely on, right?
So
because
everybody, that's what I said. Like, who we gonna
say? That's the government's out, right? The government's out is that, listen, she may have been off on her dates, but her testimony was true. That's what they're gonna say.
Well, we know that's going to be their response because that's how they tried to rehab her.
Of course.
But the problem is they had her commit to that date because she said she took the picture of the bruises and all of that on the same day it happened.
You have the metadata.
So wouldn't that be more like that would be more probable than going off of that you have something concrete where it's like, I know that it was on that date because I took pictures on that exact same day. That's
and they got the metadata from that from the pictures.
Yes.
They got your metadata. September 26th, right? And then they showed hotel receipts and room service, and over 3 or 4 days he was on the Bad Boy tour.
Right,
that's right.
So he was, and they showed him at the Convention Center and at the Boys and Girls Club. Then they show hotel receipts, and Westmoreland was like, "Would you agree with me that you can't be at 2 places at the same time?"
Right.
And Cassie was with her.
I don't know.
I don't know. I guess in theory.
In theory.
No, in practice.
In
theory.
In theory. No, in IRL. In IRL, in real life, it's in theory. That's crazy.
And I think that was it for me. I'm like, wait a minute. These prosecutors knew that they would have checked the picture. They would have seen that was not possible. But like you said, Ike, they didn't bank on a seasoned attorney catching that.
100%.
They didn't bank on it.
They sure knew all the metadata from that video, from that hotel. They knew all.
Hello.
Every time, date, 50 seconds slower than the left camera.
The speed of the video. Like, but you didn't check the photo. Okay, right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Okay, Miss Comey. Let's go.
Am I finishing this or what?
Yes, to finish it, please.
Okay. Thus, the government left the jury with the false impression that Miss Ventura saw Mr. Combs dangle her friend over the balcony and that this made her fearful of him, when in fact, if there was any incident, Ventura merely heard about it afterwards, considerably lessening any probative value as to her state of mind. Okay, what that means is that what they're saying is her testimony was not relevant. It didn't have probative value, meaning it didn't tend to prove a material fact. It didn't tend to prove any fact at issue in the case. All right. Next, the government doubled down. You used that term already. See, this is why I'm sorry. I digress. You used double down already. You can't be using that again. Next, the government doubled down by presenting perjured testimony from Bangalin intended to corroborate Ventura's false testimony. Bangalin claimed Combs lifted her up and held her feet on the balcony railing, and that this caused injuries to the back of my leg and back and neck pain. Bangalin was very definitive about these injuries, and particularly the bruise to her leg, which was one of the details that's, quote, stuck out in her mind, unquote. I'm not reading all these.
We're not doing the footnote.
Yeah, I'm not reading the footnotes. Question: where did you go after you left Cassie's apartment? Answer: I went to my apartment. Question: what did you do at your apartment? Answer: I was shaking a lot, and then I wanted to take a shower because I felt disgusted, and then I look over behind my leg and I see a huge bruise. Question: we'll talk about the bruise in just a moment. Ms. Bogelin, do you remember all of the details of the incident that night? Answer: no. Question: do the details that you've talked about stick out in your mind? They're leading. Why you're fucking leading? Answer: yes. Question: what, if any, physical injuries did you have as a result of that night? Answer: I had that big bruise was like a piercing in the middle of it. Is that what that says? A piercing in the middle of it. And then I had back and neck pain. And the government next introduced photographs of the injuries Ms. Bongelin supposedly sustained at the hands of Mr. Combs, including this exhibit, a photo depicting the leg injury taken on September 26, 2016 at 9:45 a.m. Ms. Bongelin testified that she took the photos of her leg injury around the time, quote, around the time, unquote, indicated in the exhibit that she did so, quote, the same day as the incident, and that she, quote, got the injury, unquote, from being thrown onto the balcony furniture, sorry, unquote. On cross, she confirmed that the balcony incident happened early in the morning, that the photo of the leg bruise was taken later that day, and that the injuries to her back and leg happened on the same day. The government then introduced photographs of the injuries supposedly sustained at the hands of Mr. Combs during the incident. You already said that. The government knew or should have known this testimony was perjured and that Ms. Bogelin could not possibly have been injured by Mr. Combs on a Los Angeles balcony in the early morning hours of September 26, or even the day before that. The government has long known that Mr. Combs was on the East Coast in late September, and specifically at around the time of this alleged incident. The government knew that he had stayed at Trump Hotel in New York City between September 24th to the 29th, 2016. In fact, the government had marked as government's exhibit. That's what that means. GX. That's just the government.
The Trump folio with the Trump folio with all the room service and so forth, and time that they came to the room and everything.
Right. So they had the government, because this is part of the discovery. The government already knew this. The government had this to the defense.
Absolutely.
So y'all already knew this. So again, this is what I'm saying. They know, but they hope that you don't. They hope you too busy. You can't go through all the discoveries, thousands and thousands of pages and thousands of videos, and hopefully that you won't see this one text message. You won't catch it, right?
It was caught by Miss Westmoreland.
It was caught. Probably was caught by all of them.
And the team. I said
right.
Yeah.
In fact, the government had marked the records of this hotel stay, which are now in evidence, and it has had other evidence in its possession for some time, showing Mr. Combs' travel schedule and proving that he was on the East Coast when it told the jury he dangled Miss Bongelin over a balcony in front of Miss Ventura.
Damning evidence. Damning.
But so it looks like their sealed records must have more evidence to prove, because they redacted. It must be some more evidence to prove, I guess, that he wasn't.
Right.
What's more, The defense began to expose the perjury on cross-examination. The government repeatedly attempted to disrupt the cross with unfounded objections and requests for sidebars. I love that. And unfounded claims such as the proper leading questions meant defense counsel was testifying. Then, despite having elicited Ventura's false testimony about having directly witnessed the alleged incident, you don't need directly to qualify that. I'm sorry. I'm a law professor. This is what I do. Testified directly witnessed the alleged incident. The government persuaded the court to admit the hearsay text messages with KK describing what Ventura had, quote, found out, unquote, from someone else, despite having elicited perjurious testimony from Ventura claiming she saw the alleged conduct. All of this was highly improper and exacerbated the harm caused by suborning the perjured testimony. It bears emphasis that the use of perjured testimony regarding the balcony incident is just one example of prosecutorial misconduct during this trial. The defense previously moved for a mistrial based on the improper line of questioning related to the 2012 destruction of fingerprints provided by Kid Cudi to the LAPD. As the court will recall, the defense argued that the government's motive in eliciting this testimony was to create an unfounded and highly prejudicial inference that Mr. Combs somehow had corruptly arranged for the destruction of the fingerprint. The government claimed that was not the purpose of the question, and the court denied the motion, and instead gave a narrow limited instruction. However, it became apparent shortly thereafter, during the questioning of Mia, the very next day, that in fact the government's motive all along must have been to suggest that Mr. Combs had corrupt influence over the LA authorities when it tried to create the impression that he was responsible for the destruction of the fingerprint. Specifically, the government elicited testimony from Mia about 2 incidents in which the LAPD did not issue a ticket for speeding after she was pulled over because the officers found out she worked for Mr. Combs. In one case, Mia got pulled over speeding, name dropped that her boss was Mr. Combs, and got him on the phone.
That testimony was so convenient. When she said it, and I said, well, she remembered that pretty well.
Right, you remember that so well. But remember, again, this is just to test the witness who met with the government over 27, 28 times.
Absolutely.
Yeah, memories become manufactured after that.
Right.
I'm gonna throw that out there.
Right.
Memories become manufactured, because you got to understand that when there is a very fine line between prep and coach. You are allowed to prep your witness. You are not allowed to coach the witness, and they have crossed that line. In my opinion, the prosecution here has crossed that line. When you have to meet with a witness 27 times, you have crossed the line.
That's
you are
a lot
not
of time.
hearing that witness anymore.
And you can tell that on cross.
Yeah, because they fall apart. Exactly.
Falling apart on cross.
Exactly. Because your memory has been constructed for you, right? And it's the way they do it, right? Just so people know, is when you ask a person a question and they give you an answer, and you ask that same question, you are signaling to the person that they gave you the wrong answer, which is why you're asking the question again. And then you are then prompting them to give you a different answer. That is the difference between prep and coach. If I'm prompting you to give me a different answer because I am rejecting the answer you gave, that's coaching. That's coaching. Okay? All right.
So
that's why you got to meet with somebody 27 fucking times.
You think they gave us some cues? I'm sure they gave us cues in the prepper. Listen, if I say it this way, I say it this way, you
100%.
Right.
100%. And we see that. This is the product of that. This is exactly what we see happening. All right, where did I lead off? Okay, what's more? Did I read that already? I guess not. What's more? What's more? What's more? Why does that say that? What's more? When the defense began, I don't like that. Okay, what's more? When the defense began to expose the perjury in court, did I read this already? Y'all not helping.
No, you're on the whole. You're down to.
I'm down further, right?
Cutting. Yeah, Kid
Cudi. Okay. As the court will recall, the defense argued that the government's motive. I read that already too. I'm going to her. However, it became apparent shortly thereafter during the questioning of. I got to this very next day that in fact the government's. I read all of that too. In one case, Mia got pulled over for speeding, name drop. That's where I left off. That her boss was Mr. Cohn, got him on the phone, after which the officer was saying like, oh my God, Puff Daddy, I love you. Like just went into this whole very excited conversation, and then she let me go. The second,
they want you to believe Puff got that much clout in LA.
the next, hit the next page, then.
Next
sorry.
page.
Okay.
It's only 2 more pages, guys.
And that's pretty much that. That's it. That's
the next page?
That's 5.
Okay. All right. Tom Combs was in the car. Yeah, this is the second time Combs was in the car. And once they saw Puff, they were like, oh, my bad. Yeah. And left us alone. The prosecutor took special care to emphasize that those incidents occurred in Los Angeles. Question, what city did these interactions with the police occur in? Answer, LA. These incidents in isolation seem like benign examples of police giving lenient treatment to popular famous people. Coupled with the sinister implications of the fingerprint destruction, however, they create a strong implication that the reason Mia, and as the government will surely argue, other alleged victims didn't go to the police was because of Mr. Combs' corrupt influence over the police and the LAPD in particular. In other words, the subsequent questioning of Mia, even if itself permissible, further corroborates that the government's real purpose in its questioning of the fire inspector, Lance Jimenez, was to improperly suggest that Mr. Combs corruptly caused the destruction of the fingerprints. This constitutes another instance of prosecutorial misconduct. Accordingly, the court should grant a mistrial based on prosecutorial misconduct. Why aren't y'all asking for a mistrial with prejudice? Right, Pam? You're just asking for a mistrial and you're going to let your client sit in jail and all that bullshit. Like, no, I need a mistrial with prejudice. This was a deliberate act on the prosecution. They shouldn't get an opportunity to try this shit again. That's why I have a problem with this letter. Go in.
And that's what I was saying when I talked about it. I was like, okay, so they're asking for a mistrial. So they're basically okay with them filing it again, starting everything all over again and asking for a bond again and going through all this again because the ego is going to drive them probably to try to do it again.
Yeah.
So why would you not just say, listen, it's just been too much prosecutional misconduct. There is no way to cure what has happened. So we want this dismissed with prejudice. They can't bring this back. They messed up. Okay.
Right.
They overcharged. I think they overcharged.
100% they overcharged it. Absolutely. They absolutely overcharged it because they think that when you throw the word RICO and racketeering around, that people shudder. People shudder and they're like, oh my God. You know,
not a billionaire.
No. Not one is willing to fight.
Attorneys, not with access.
Well, we're gonna see what happens in the morning because he typically takes up most of your arguments at half an hour before court starts.
He's going to deny the motion.
That's what I said. I was like, he's not going to grant it, but
let me just disabuse us all of the idea that he's going to deny it. He's going to deny it, but it's preserved, right? So, the other half of being a trial lawyer is to protect the record for appeal, right? And preserve properly under 103, properly preserve claims.
Can y'all guess what professor she is over at
Evidence. Evidence.
What classes are we doing? You spitting them out. I'm like, shoot, I'll still be looking at that. Like, wait a minute, I think that's 10.
Yes. I teach the federal rules of evidence, so I know them too well, unfortunately. Or fortunately.
Unfortunately, depending, what side of the table you're sitting on in the courtroom.
Facts.
Well, I want to thank both of you for joining. I haven't been live like this in a while. I mean, being in New York,
I know.
This felt good. Shout out to Mel. I'm not a lawyer. Shout out to Pam, and shout out to attorney Ike, and shout out to the other guy. That's me. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you're following everyone that's on this panel. We'll see you on the next live. I know Pam is doing a transcript reading. What page are you on, and which one are you reading? Where you at there? Because that's 300. That last one, like 300 something pages.
Yeah, I saw it. I was like,
I
hey,
don't know about all that. But so I read half of like up to lunch today, and then I came on about the mistrial, and I just took the transcript where they talked about the mistrial, so we'll know what Westmoreland did to get to that point. We went over some of the sidebars, and then we went over the mistrial. So because they didn't put, like Ike saying, they didn't really it wasn't really meaty. And so I was like, let me pull up the transcript so y'all know what happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they didn't really put it in there. So I just used that transcript for that day, but that was it. But I'll probably do the other half eventually. But we'll see. It's moving so fast that if you don't hit it soon, you on the
No,
more
you got to hit it.
I'm always playing catch up. I'm always like, what happened today? Yeah.
Right. Then we want to look at the testimony of Jane Doe. I mean, she's the talk of the town, you know.
Yeah. I can't wait for the cross. I cannot wait for the cross.
Oh my goodness.
Neither.
Who you think they're gonna do? Did they say Tina was doing it?
Teeny Geragos.
Geragos is gonna do the cross.
So let's see if she knows the 3 C's of impeachment.
Well,
because everybody's not adept. Everyone is not good at cross. It is a
talk. You know, seeing Westmoreland do her thing and see what people are saying online, and hopefully that's
hopefully
the good part with other attorneys. You can, you know, pick up and try to sharpen some of the things you don't know. You still learning.
Let me just throw this out here. There are some prideful white lawyers who sometimes think they can't learn nothing from black lawyers. I'm gonna say it right there. That's the truth, because it's true. When we show up, they don't. I'm just gonna.
But I'm sure they don't like.
I'm just gonna say.
I'm talking about how great Westmoreland is.
That's
sure
right.
She ain't feeling that at all. She probably.
And I gotta drop
in the mirror right now.
I gotta drop some videos because you know, every time she comes in, I shoot her with questions. I shot Miss Combs with a question. I'm tell you what I said. So you're gonna see the video probably gonna go viral. I said to her, I said, "Do you think they're trying to go after your son's money?" She turned around, looked at me like, you know they are. That's what she gave me. I'm like, wait a minute, we don't get no that.
Ain't no thinking, no try.
Oh, that's the luxury of the RICO. Y'all ain't know.
Exactly. They don't try.
Y'all ain't know what the RICO, why they started expanding it. Like they can get all your money with the RICO.
Oh my goodness.
You check the chat. Do we have any questions in the chat before we go? I appreciate you. Come to Close TV. Thank you. Appreciate
you.
Appreciate y'all.
Okay, yeah, we get that. We'll get to that.
James Cross is gonna be epic. I can't wait.
The cross, that's what everybody's waiting for. The cross may start. Okay, this is for let's read hers. Thank you. Read that, Ike.
Yeah. Attorney Shabazz, shouldn't witnesses not be speaking to other witnesses before testimony? Seems like they can coordinate testimony. Yes, Mark Nash TV, you are absolutely right. These witnesses should not be talking to each other. They should not be trying to homogenize their testimony, right? Homogenize meaning that they are trying to line up and marry and merge and mesh their testimonies so that they are consistent with one another. That should not be happening. Absolutely.
That's the reason for sequestration, is for that same purpose. So them talking about, I text them right after the testimony and we talked this morning, and it's been a lot.
Right. I'm like, wait a minute. Did you hear what the judge said?
That's a problem.
That's a problem.
But the question that they didn't ask Pam is, were you instructed by the government not to do that? Why you didn't ask that question? Because the government should have told you not to talk to other witnesses about the testimony. And so if you got that instruction and then you did it anyway, that's even worse, right? Again, you know, you can't just go into the confront. You got to build it up, all right? And so that's something I would have wanted to know. Were you instructed not to do that?
Let me ask you a question. You know that a witness is getting on the stand on a Monday. Do you have the resources to pull their phone records for the last couple of days leading up to their testimony?
No.
Because you always want to know
that in a couple of days.
Right.
Because you might need a subpoena, right? So this everything that they should need for witnesses, they should have, they should already have, right? Because discovery is closed. We're not still discovering things. They should have everything they need for all of these witnesses.
You would think they would. This is a great team. This is a dream team.
Kind of like the 11th hour to be trying to get phone records, for something. You knew these witnesses were coming. You knew the subject of their testimony. The judge is not going to allow you you know, to take time away from the trial to do something you should have already done.
So when Nash was asked, did he talk when last time he talked to Cassie?
Mm-hmm.
He's talked to a few leading up to the trial. I think the day before. He might have talked to that day. We don't know.
Right. But the other side of it is too, she did just have a baby. You know what I mean? Right. So you don't want to.
Well,
try
yeah.
You will lose credibility with the jury if you try to make a big deal out of everything. You got to choose your battles.
Right. That's
right. So I'm not going to make a big deal about the fact that you spoke to your friend who just had a baby, because then I'll look like a whole asshole. You know what I mean? I don't want to. You know. So you got to pick your battles, and I wouldn't. That wouldn't be one.
That wouldn't be one.
Just that area, but the fact that, you know, Bungling spoke to Ventura, that I'm going in. Go all the way in on that. You know,
right? Because now you want
that's a different thing. That has a different implication.
Right. Yeah, you're talking to this person that you had a failed business. Well, there was a failed business. You end up instead. You know.
Mm-hmm. You breaking up?
Where he goes, right?
No, I'm trying to pull some video, but yeah, this Wi-Fi sucks. With that, I want to again say thank you for everyone, the whole panel, for coming in, and we're gonna have to come back, talk about this cross examination.
Yes, we're gonna have to talk about this cross. Yes, sir. Maybe Monday.
Well, it's not gonna be Monday. Probably Tuesday.
They're talking about it. She's gonna be long like Cassie.
All right, I'm gonna be at 111 Center Street Monday.
Really? Oh, you got to pull up. You got to pull up. Listen,
I'll pull up. I ain't got no choice. I got to hear it.
I'm going to warn you.
You gonna come when you come to my hearing? I have a press case. I'm coming to do a press case.
Oh, it's a press case.
Yeah, it's a press case. I'll tell you about it Monday.
Okay, someone has a question.
Yeah.
What's that question?
I'll tell you about it. You know, I don't like to try my cases in the press. But after
why can't you recall? Cassie can be recalled. Can be called for the defense. I mean, she can call, not as a defense witness, probably a hostile witness, but the defense can call her.
Fighting it though. Like
why do you think they can't recall her? She can be recalled.
She can.
She can be recalled by the defense. She can be recalled by the government as a rebuttal witness.
The government was against that though. Like that's been a conversation as well. Like they don't want her to have to come back because of the whole prejudice things and all of that. But
that's even more reason why I'll be bringing her back, because y'all don't want to.
Right.
Well, whatever you want, I don't want, and whatever you don't want, I want. So,
right.
They just right. I tell you.
Oh my God. You can listen. That woman had a baby. Listen, she was in there big and she had that baby a week later. Thank God they got her on. Because
they knew that's why she went first. That's why
that's why Diddy was trying to move it out 2 months. I think he was trying to for optics. That's what I thought it was. I'm like, when I saw that picture of her belly, I said, oh, they're trying to move it 2 months out for the optics of it.
Right.
And the judge denied, oh, you want a speedy trial? We're going to show you speedy over here at the Southern District.
Honor your rights.
You got your constitutional right.
That's right. I recognize you got a right to go to trial. Let's have it. Right
I still want to. I want to hear more from Cassie. I think she has some explaining to do. Listening to
she had a full and fair opportunity.
Okay.
So I would object to the government bringing her back because
I'm
play the video again.
Oh no. As a matter of fact,
hotel video one more time.
No. You're right. We don't
need enough of her.
No. We don't need to go backwards. I agree.
Exactly.
All right, guys. I appreciate you. I really do.
Thank you for having us, Dennis. Good to see you, Pam.
You too, Ike.
Back together.
We always like, girl, do you hear what happened?
I know, right? I'll be like, what happened?
She's like, girl, I'm out golfing, okay? I'll talk to you later. We'll talk about Diddy later.
Absolutely.
I am. So everybody knows I'm an avid golfer. I will be golfing tomorrow. I golf 3 times a week. It is for my sanity. Yes, for my sanity. I need it.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you on the next live. Good night.
All right.